Thanks for tuning in to the Drive On podcast, where we are focused on giving hope and strength to the entire military community. Whether you're a veteran, active duty, guard, reserve, or a family member, this podcast will share inspirational stories and resources that are useful to you. I'm your host, Scott DeLucio, and now let's get on with the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to Drive On. I'm your host, Scott DeLucio, and today my guest is Jess Timmerman. She's a remarkable individual who has turned her personal tragedy into a beacon of hope and support for military suicide survivor families. Her journey is marked by loss and resilience, and I think it serves as an inspiration to us all. So before we get into the story and what we're going to talk about here today, I want to welcome you to the show, Jess. I'm really glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
Yeah, you bet. So I kind of gave a little description of what we're going to talk about here in the intro, but can you share with the listeners a little bit about the story of your brother and the circumstances surrounding his passing?
Sure. I wouldn't be here if I didn't lose my brother. So that's kind of where the right place to start. My brother served proudly in the United States Infantry in the Army for 15 years. He was active duty at the time of his passing. He passed on Mother's Day of 2022. He saw combat in Iraq, Afghanistan, South Africa. He was very accomplished, they'd say a squared away soldier. My brother had a rough last 6-8 months or so. My brother married, had his little boy is 7 now, but so 5 at the time. They moved to Germany in 2018, and we know what happened with the world after that. You had COVID, which sidelined, people don't get into the military to relax. So those are people that need to be active and busy. And so COVID kind of sidelined him a little bit. His marriage was in a rough spot. He was helping train in Slovakia in about February and had to have a GI surgery. He just was going through it, had a DUI, was drinking a lot. He kind of, in his last 6 months of life, he thought he was losing everything. And, he did agree to see treatment. He didn't know if he would be separating from the Army because of his DUI. He was unsure of what that picture looked like. It happened in October and he passed in May, and he still wasn't sure. I think the separation board was in August. So it got dark, it got scary, but everybody thought he was going to rehab on May 16th. They didn't have beds available at the time, so we kind of had to wait for that. But he was living in a cool-off barracks. We knew help was coming, and we didn't know that he had this planned. But he just lost his battle to it all.
It's unfortunate. That's maybe an understatement, I guess. Obviously, it's a tragedy for you, for your family, for his wife and his son, for everyone who knew him. Especially thinking back to my time in the military, knowing those squared away soldiers, like you said, that was who he was. He was squared away, and then things start happening and they start falling apart, and sometimes it can come upon rather quickly, within a period of just a few months. And, it almost feels like you're drowning and you need something, but you just don't know where to go. And it's hard. I've lost people under similar circumstances, people that I served with.
Right.
And it's really the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing with this podcast, is because there are people out there who need help. They don't know where to find it. There's stuff going on in their lives, and they're just feeling like they're all alone, that they got to deal with all of this on their own. And there's tons of reasons why people do what they do, but if there's just a little bit of hope, a glimmer of hope, that might be just enough to make it another day. You know what I mean? And that's what my hope is with this whole podcast, but also this episode, is to give a little bit of that hope to the folks who might be listening, who might feel like all hope is lost, or maybe you know somebody who is in a similar position, and you
Right.
can share these messages with them, you know. Now, how did your family and you kind of navigate the aftermath of your brother's passing, and what were there any support systems or anything that you use that you found helpful during that time?
Sure. So that's a interesting thing. They say a suicide loss affects like 135 people on average, right? So there seemed to be a ton of support if you lose your spouse, or it gets a little grayer if you lose your cousin or your best friend
Mhm.
from college. Um, and and again, what you just said about why you do this whole podcast, I wish I had a roadmap and I could tell you do A, do B 1,000 times, and it's taking the little pieces of hope in whatever day. It's really been helpful in my journey to find people that can relate to what I've been through or have walked similar things. And that to me has been another really disheartening thing. You've spoke about losing people you've served with, and even outside of the services, if we can be vulnerable with our stories, you never know. It might be like a mom you pass in the car line and she said, "Oh, my cousin was a Marine and he lost his life," and
Mhm.
those minutes of connection can make people feel not isolated, because clearly we can put all these services and programs into play, but if we as people don't connect with each other, how are we going to get out of it?
Right. Right, and I think that connection uh, helps because we a lot of times, especially service members, we will isolate ourselves. We'll just I don't want to burden somebody with what I'm going through, what I'm dealing with. So I'm just gonna go away and I'm gonna be isolated, and I'm not gonna go out to family functions, to public events. I'm just not gonna be around people. Um,
Right.
and then that idea that I'm all alone in whatever it is that you're going through becomes reality. You really are all alone, but you're not if you were to kind of push yourself to get out there with other people. Um, there's other people who might be experiencing the exact same thing that you're going through, or there's other people who might know somebody who's gone through that and is like, hey, this is a thing that helped them, and you can
Right.
talk to those people and they'll help you. But like you were saying, in your case, there's a ton of support for spouses and immediate family members of service members who are killed in action. Um, but that line gets a little bit more gray when it comes to families of suicide uh, uh, victims, right? So,
Right. Right.
um, so that becomes a little bit more difficult. So finding that community of people who you can be around to get that support that you might need is especially important in cases like yours, because there may not be a ton of other options that are out there, right?
Right, right. I do think TAPS is a fantastic resource.
Mhm.
To me, specifically, why I felt I had to get involved more is they like you to be 3 years removed from your loss to be helpful or a mentor. And to
Okay.
me, that seemed very hopeful. Loss of hope. Also, I was like, you want me to sit here in this pain for 3 years? Like, I'm much better. To me, like emotion needs movement. Like, I need
Mhm.
to be doing something with
Sure.
this. Yeah.
So what you're doing now to help, oh, I guess just talk to us a little bit about what you're doing now to help folks who are going through similar journeys and everything that you're doing now.
This is why I was so glad to find you and your podcast. You're somebody doing the work. To me, I always see what I want my future to look like and then try to like back channel how do I get there, which is so silly because people. I've been fortunate to go on a few podcasts. They're like, "Well, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm still figuring it out." I
Well,
just want to be, if it's me that has to cry on the milk carton and show everybody what a suicide loss survivor looks like, and if that makes people reach out, then I will be that person, I guess. But
yeah. Well, and it makes sense what you're talking about, and I don't think it's silly at all the way you described it. In the military, we do this a lot, where we back plan. We say, well, what's the mission? What's the objective? Where do we need to be? And let's work our way backwards to where we are now, and then we can fill in the blanks of everything that we need to do, or where we need to be, when we need to leave, or all of that kind of stuff. We can kind of figure all that stuff out, and I even do that today in just my normal regular life. Like if I have a doctor's appointment and it's at 10 o'clock, and it takes me a half hour to get there, I like work my way backwards. Like, okay, I have to leave by, 9:30 at the latest, but give myself a little buffer, and I work
right,
my way backwards with all that kind of stuff. But even with, goals and objectives, and like, what is it that I want to do with whatever this um, whatever this plan happens to be, kind of take a look at what is um, what is the end goal, and kind of work your way backwards to figure out how do you get there. And it's not always easy, because the end goal may not even be all that clear. um, but along the way, as you're working way through it, I think it kind of gets a little bit more clear, as you're working way through. But what you're doing now, coming on and being that vulnerable face, that it's like, hey, you folks are not alone in what you're going through. And that's an important message to the people who, again, might feel like they are alone. They don't have the community that you were talking about, and they need somebody to help them find that. And that's an important mission too, and that's what I see what you're doing right now, right?
yeah. I
Yeah,
think it's hard to be like a really empowered, passionate civilian military supporter because there's certain things you can't get into. I can come up with every idea in the world, but if people don't listen, so it's just about knocking on doors and seeing who is wanting to collaborate, which can be frustrating. But I
sure.
guess the hope in all this, right, is that we don't know who we might be reaching. And if there's one person that seeks help and doesn't think that they are without hope, then we did our jobs, right? I mean,
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Now, your organization, the Final Salute, can you tell us about that, and like the services and the type of stuff that you do?
sure. I immediately set out to be a death doula which is a very specific niche to military suicide loss survivor families. When this, when you lose a family member in the service, you get a big binder of decisions you have to make right
Yeah.
away. And it's very overwhelming, lonely. You don't know what you're doing. We make decisions quickly to put check boxes.
Mhm.
I thought it would be an incredible service if I could sit there just with unbiased to be a support to the families going through it as they're sitting in funeral homes. Um, as I've being an adult, you look younger than me, but being 40, my time is so limited, and I just whatever I want to pour all my energy into what I can do. So I've shifted away from doula work, and I'm leaning towards doing more podcasting, blogging. Just if I think we're all born with unique things, and most of the time I love talking to people. Right now I'm breaking out, but I just think if we can share our stories. So you asked about the Final Salute. The
Yeah.
services I offer are death doula, public speaking, fundraising, and then I always think of Robin Williams. I think he was just such an. I think of him going on those USO tours and visiting with people that had unfortunately gotten hurt in the line of battle. And I just think of him walking through the hospital rooms, holding hands with patients. And I'm no Robin Williams, but I think that'd be such a cool thing to do. I,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So, uh, you know, thinking about Robin Williams and the work that he did, I've seen some videos. I've never seen him in person, but I've seen some videos of some of the USO tours and the stuff that he did, and he's out there putting smiles on people's faces, making them laugh, like not just giggle, like a little laugh kind of thing. Like they got the full deal when he came out there, and um, I remember there's this one video where um, he's on stage, he's telling jokes, he's doing his stand up routine, and all at once, everybody in the audience, all the service members in the audience, turn around and like face away from him, and I forget. I forget when it was, but they were there they were saluting the flag, and they were um, uh, then afterwards, everyone turned back around, and he was like, "What the hell was that?" And he's like, "When everybody in a military uniform turns around, you think I probably need to follow them and like go that way because they're retreating or something. Like I shouldn't stay here." I forget the whole routine, but and clearly he did a way better job at making an impact on people and making them laugh than I would. Um, but having that goal in mind, right? That you want to be the type of person who is going to uh, uh, make an impact on somebody's life. And I know sitting in that funeral home, going through all those decisions when it's just like, oh, so overwhelming. Um, the military does a great job trying to make it a little bit easier. They do have some information that kind of makes it a little bit easier, but still, um, there's all these forms and documents and all these things that you got to go through,
right,
um, and I'm sure when our family went through it, um, we made some mistakes and did some things that I don't want to say mistakes, but maybe we could have done something better. But as you go through this, you start to learn what those things are and what those decisions are that you could maybe do better or worse or whatever. Um, and having someone there to help guide you through that, unbiased and all that, I think is a great idea. It's a great service. Um, I wish there was no need for it,
right.
but
You're right. That's the ultimate goal, right?
yeah,
But I think as long as humanity has been around, we suffer, right?
yeah.
So,
It, we do. And unfortunately, sometimes that suffering gets passed on to other loved ones. And it's a tragedy, I think, when that happens. We don't want that. We want to stop that in the military community. We want to stop that with everybody, period. But our focus here with this show is the military community. That's clearly where your passion lies as well. And so um, the services that kind of help transition or not transition, but help go through that process, I think are super important. But just knowing that there's someone there who gets it, I think is important too, right?
yeah, I think that I couldn't tell you who did this research study, but I do think there was a research study done and it looked at lost survivors and what they did that felt most helpful to them. And it was, I want to say the only thing that was like 100% was going to not just a grief support group, but specific for this type of loss. And
Mhm.
I don't necessarily, it's anything about the group that does it. I think it's just connecting to someone that has walked the path. And if we don't talk about suicide in normal society, how are you going to find out if, somebody that you have coffee with every other month has been through it, because we
Yeah.
don't talk about it. So,
Yeah, and no one's immune to experiencing this. I mean, you said your nephew, your brother's son was 5 at the time, you know.
Right.
So anyone like any age range. I mean, I was a kid. I was God, how old was I? I was probably 7 or 8 years old. I had a baseball coach who committed suicide. You know, like
Right.
you could be at any age and still be exposed to this, unfortunately. Um, but it I mean, it happens, but having the people around who, like you said, have walked the path, who know what you're going through, um, it's helpful to um, to get through that process. I mean, we do this in the military too. We have just that camaraderie that we
Right.
build amongst ourselves, right? We are kind of going through shared experiences to together, and that helps us get through those crappy times,
Right.
the miserable mission that you're getting rained on the entire time or something. You're covered in mud, and you can look over at the other guy who's also covered in mud, and you can laugh at him because it's funny to see him all
Right.
covered in mud, but more than that, though, it forms that bond, that connection that you now have this level of trust with this person. And, it's like, yeah, they get it. So I feel like I can open up and talk and share and be vulnerable around this person. And like you said, just having that group of people, it's maybe not necessarily the group itself, it's just that connection, that bond that you get through that group, right?
Yeah, I do think there are a lot of organizations out there doing grassroots effort. I think one of the losses my brother was mourning before his passing was the idea of separating from the military, right?
Mhm.
If you plan to be, and there are organizations out, if there was a way we could streamline all these services, for instance, I know a guy that served with my brother that was living in Kansas. They had a veterans group where they would go duck hunting once a month, and then, like you said, the camaraderie. And
Yeah,
I know in Wyoming, these guys that do a rodeo. But again, I mean, if you have a very specific hobby, you live somewhere you didn't grow up, it stinks when you're the one suffering that you have to advocate for things that might help you. I mean, it really does stink when you're in a tough place that you just have to keep digging deeper and trying different things. But
sure. Yeah, you know, that's pretty much the last thing that's gonna be on your mind is digging up these resources and trying to find it, and which is why, like, through this show, I try to make it easy to
right,
find resources. We talk about a ton of different resources. And just by listening to what we talk about in the organizations that we share and um, the groups that are available, um, should help point you in the right direction, but that requires the work of actually listening to this type of stuff, right? And I love the word you said, one key word that in my mind, like, kind of triggered an idea. And I don't know, maybe there's someone out there who can take this and run with it. I'm definitely not claiming ownership of this or anything, but um, a way to streamline, and streamline was the word that you used, this process of exiting the military, and there's different paths that everyone's going to end up taking. They may Everyone gets out for different reasons.
right,
And you may get out and you may want to go to college, and that's the goal, and that's what you're trying to do. So there should be uh, a path where it's like, okay, that's my goal, that's the direction I'm taking, this is what I need to do. I need to go take this class on, the GI Bill, or, whatever, and figure out that side of things, because all the other stuff that's out there may not be relevant to me. It might be. There might be some little pieces that might be relevant, but for the most part, let's take care of that bulk of that. You may be getting out for medical reasons, okay,
Right.
well, what are some of the medical resources and the disability resources and all that type of stuff that's available to you? Learn that stuff. But I know when coming off of active duty, uh, when they go through all of the resources that are available, they go through all of the resources that are available, and it's like drinking from a fire hose. There's no way you're going to get it all. It's
Right.
impossible. So it's like, how about just give me what I need right now? Maybe give me a pamphlet with some of the rest of the stuff in case I need it later on, but let's focus on this. And so, like in your brother's case, I think it would have been helpful for, having some idea of like, what does life look like after the military?
Right.
It may not have been in his plan to get out, but, here you are, you're getting out. And what does that look
There
like?
can still be a great life,
Sure.
with a just different deck of cards, Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, uh, maybe you want to stay in it for 20 years or more and make a career of it, but that's not in the cards for everybody. But there is life after that for everybody.
Right.
And you just have to have a plan. And sometimes that fear of the unknown is paralyzing almost, like you just don't know what to do, right?
Definitely. Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's it's hard, I think. It's hard finding that balance because it's not like a flow chart where it's like, if this, then you go here and then there and whatever. Everybody's kind of a like unique blend of stuff that
The
they're
military
going through,
probably
right?
does have a flow chart of A, B, and C,
I'm
but
sure they
like
do,
you
and maybe
said,
that's
none
the
of us
problem.
go in that box.
Yeah. Yeah, that may be the problem is they're trying to fit us all into a box and we don't all fit that way.
Right.
So, so that might be kind of a problem. So, you know, I guess the best thing is just finding that community. Some people don't wanna dwell on it or they feel like um, it's too sad and I don't wanna be around this constantly, but by having those people in your life, it it helps you to figure out like what do they do to kind of get through this stage of the grief and how do I get to where they are, kind of like what we were just saying earlier about kind of that reverse planning where you see where is the end goal and how do I get there, right? And I think
Right.
that's the best thing that people can do, I think, right?
Yeah. I think you definitely, every day is not meant to be a home run, right? I mean, especially like grieving, right? You're going to have days that kick you on your butt, or there's all days we doubt everything. But the thing is just hope to get us to the next one, and yeah,
Yeah.
I was about to go on a cheesy rant there that
No,
wasn't
that's okay.
authentic.
No, I
No,
mean,
it's okay. I'm good. It's gone.
okay. Um, yes, every once in a while I go on cheesy rants too, so I I like to have company when I do that. So if there's ever a cheesy rant, you don't feel like you gotta hold back. Uh,
It was weird even preparing for this today, and I'm like redoing my website, and I just feel so silly because it's like lots of people lose people. Just get on with your life. If you need a job, your kids' schools need substitutes. Like, just grow up, Jessica. But I think that's really like imposter syndrome. It's hard. You and I didn't say, "Oh, I want to be a podcaster. I want to talk about the worst things I've ever been through." I mean, that would be
right.
weird for us to be 10-year-olds that did that, but you just kind of have to have like courage to do the next thing that makes sense. Even when
Yeah.
it feels silly or hard, or I got on Facebook for some stupid reason before I got on here with you, and I was like, these Facebook holidays, it's like National Siblings Day. I was like, oh, that's ironic. I'm going on this with him at this time. And I was like, or it doesn't matter because it's made up. I just,
Right.
life's weird. Just gotta. Sometimes we're laughing. Sometimes it really sucks. But yeah.
Yeah. And just for the record, I hate those made up
Oh
holidays. Like
my god. How do they have one for every day of the year? Like,
every day
who
of the
made
year, and
this?
some days there's, like, multiple things. It's like it's National Cookie Day and, I don't know,
and
you know,
burritos. So
hug your dog day or something stupid like that. Like,
I
who
know.
cares? Who has that much time to come up with this? This is I'm going off on a rant. I'm
Yep.
gonna come
Sorry.
back
You can
on focus
cut it
here,
out.
but no, that's fine. It's but I think you're right. Where sometimes you do feel like just get over it. Like, why can't I just get over it? But it's like such a huge piece of your life. The person that you lost is was such a huge piece of who you are. Um, as in your case as a sister, my case as a brother, when that is ripped away from you suddenly, unexpectedly, you had no visibility that this was coming. Um, that's like ripping an arm off or
Totally.
worse, it's like,
It's a loss of your complete identity, and you have
yeah.
so many memories, and there's so many triggers, and it's completely uprooting. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. I actually felt like when I was told that my brother was killed in action, I felt like something was, like, physically, like, in my stomach, like, ripped from me. Like, it was like a punch to the gut, but worse. It
Yeah.
was this physical I'm surprised I didn't puke moment. Like, it was that bad. Um, and so, yeah, how do you just, quote, unquote, "get over it"? You
Can't.
don't.
I
You
mean,
don't.
there's things, and it's, yeah, you have to ease your way back. You're right. It still sometimes feels like a punch in the gut.
Mhm.
I my husband and I went to high school in the same small town, like 10,000 people. My grandma lives there. We were there recently, and the friends we stay with, this is just a small town thing, right? Our best friends live in the house that my brother's best friend lived growing up. Like, I know the floorboards you could push on of where like beer cans were stacked, and I'm like, this shouldn't be triggering, but staying at a friend's house. But I mean, it's just, you lose your whole identity. I don't
Yeah.
really like the sports. We used, my brother would watch all these cheesy like sports movies like Rudy. I can't even like look at that. Or Notre Dame football. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You're
Yeah,
right.
and
But talking about it takes you right back to when you heard.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's
and
awful.
it is, but sometimes, uh, you kinda have to just experience that awful feeling to kinda get through it, and then you can kinda remember the good times. You can remember the happy stuff and the fun things that you might have done, and, it helps sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's like, "Well, damn, I wish I could have more of that," and,
Right.
so I guess it depends on the state that you're in. Like, what do you wanna just be mad and get angry and yell and scream and, you know, scream into a pillow and just yell and get it out, that type of thing, or, um, if you wanna experience memories, like, go look through old photos or, home movies or things like that, and then you can relive some of those experiences if that's the place that you're in, but not everyone is in the same type of place. So there's not like one magic solution. You can't wave a magic wand over every situation, just fix it, So
Right.
it takes some work on your end too to figure out where is it that I am in this grieving process, and that may change, like you said, from day to day. Not every day is going to be a home run. Um, but some days are going to be a complete strikeout if we're sticking with the baseball analogies. But um, you know, but how do you get to the next day, the next at bat, if you will, so that you have the possibility of a home run? What do you do in the meantime, and how do you get a better day? And it's gonna vary for each person, but you kind of have to, I think, maybe listen to yourself and see what do I need right now, and seek that out.
Right. I agree. It is,
Yeah.
it seems wrong that, right, the worst thing happens to you and then you have to advocate for yourself. But,
Mhm.
right, it's like getting hit by a car and then, oh, would you like to go to the hospital or to, it just
Yeah.
doesn't seem real. But you're right.
Right. Yeah. But I think in any situation, you're always going to be your best advocate. You have to advocate for yourself, because nobody's going to want the best for you the way you want the best for you, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to want it more than anybody else is, and if you don't want it at all, if you're not seeking out the best, what in whatever circumstance, there's not going to be people out there who are just going to do it for you.
Right.
They're going to realize that it's kind of a futile effort, and why are we going to spend our time on that if it's not going to be fruitful? So, yeah, you kind of have to take that first step. And once when people see that you're trying, that you want this, that you want to get better, you want to be able to grieve and go through whatever the situation that you're in, that's when people are going to be like, okay, well, I can help and I will help. Um, but if you're not willing to take that first step yourself, people aren't going to come knocking on your door
Right.
and drag you out of bed and make you take a shower and make you brush your teeth and make you go, you know, to the gym and get some exercise and sit outside and get some fresh air or go to work. They're not going to make you do any of that stuff. Um, unless you're putting in some effort yourself. And so, sometimes it's hard to do any of those things I just mentioned, but you kind of have to take those first steps and just force yourself to
Right.
to do those things and allow yourself to experience the negativity, the the grief. I don't want to say it's negative, like it's a thing you want to avoid, but allow yourself to experience the grief and the sadness and things like that, because it's normal, quite frankly, right? That
Right.
people are
It's
supposed to experience
abnormal to
that,
hide it and to push it down. And
right?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, in my experience, unfortunately, when my brother was killed, I had to push that stuff down in the moment that,
Right.
I found out, because I was
In a
literally
combat
in
zone.
combat. We got shot at, like, 15 minutes after finding out that my brother was killed, so, like, I had no place else to go. Like, I couldn't just go to some safe place where the Taliban wasn't going to attack or something, like, that
Right.
didn't
They
exist.
weren't going to take the day off to,
Yeah,
right.
exactly. Like, I'm sitting in the middle of uh, a desert on top of a mountain with RPGs and small arms fire going off. Like, I had to push that down. I had really no other choice. But
Right.
once when you're in a environment that you can grieve, that you can experience these things, let it out. Let those emotions happen, because like you said, it's not normal to push that stuff down. It's totally abnormal. Like what I did, not normal. You're not
Right.
supposed to do that. Um,
Right.
Sometimes you have to. In my case, I had to. But if you're in an environment where you can let that stuff out, let it out. You know. So, man, I know
We got off your set list, right? Because I like threw you a curveball with Robin Williams and made you think of something.
that's okay. So just for the listeners, so before each episode, I prepare. I come up with a bunch of questions and things like that, just kind of a roadmap, general ideas that I want to talk about during the episode. But I look at it kind of like a road trip. Like the guest and I, we're going on a road trip together. We're going from A to B, kind of like that backwards planning that I was just talking about earlier.
Right.
Um, and I always think about it like, if we're on a road trip, if you and I were in a car together right now, and we're driving, going from A to B, wherever it was, and we see a sign on the side of the highway, and it's like, this real cool thing, and we're like, yeah, let's go check it out. It's not on the path, it's not on the roadmap that we're traveling, but let's go check that out anyways. That's the way I see this outline that I send to all my guests is I can take that detour. It's cool. And we'll find our way back to the
I like
path
it.
eventually. And if we don't, that's fine, because we probably came up with something cooler to talk about than whatever it was I had to talk about anyway. So that destination may be better than the original destination that we had in mind. So that's kind of where I look at it. So um, I guess so. we kind of talked about actually some of the stuff that I had on my outline here, but um, what are some resources that are available? You mentioned TAPS. You mentioned your organization, the Final Salute. Are there any other resources that you found that were helpful to support folks who are going through their grief journey?
If we're talking specifically about suicide, I think the
Sure.
AFSP, the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, they have a ton of stuff, and they even have like a search bar where you can look for lost support groups near you. So that's
Okay.
kind of nice. If I, yeah, that's always a good first step.
Mhm.
Um, there's yeah, Taps is fantastic. They have webinar. They have a free webinars. I had a mentor for a year. She would call me like once a month and check in on me and just talk about things. There's things out there. You just have to, again, like you said, pay attention to like what's helpful and what's hurtful, right?
Mhm.
You want to go towards what feels supportive and not like you're activate. Not all
Sure.
support groups are created the same. Not all therapists are the same. That was something I've never said before. I think sometimes if you can get a resistant person to go to therapy and it's terrible, they will never come back.
Yep.
But they should know that you, being the patient, have all the power. So you can straight up ask, I recently lost someone I love to suicide. Have you seen clients like me before? And that's a
Mhm.
relevant question because if they haven't, they're going to be treating you from a textbook, and we're not textbooks.
Right.
So,
Right. Yes, and that's a good point, and I think for anybody, I don't care how hard-headed you are or or whatever, anyone who takes that first step to go seek out therapy because of whatever it is that they're going through, um, if that first person that you meet is not clicking with you and you're not feeling it and it just is not a good situation, there's somebody else out there. You can they will not be offended whatsoever if you're like, "Hey, this isn't working out. I'm not really feeling it with you. Um, we're not clicking. I don't think you have the right experience." Whatever the case may be, um, just tell them. And as a matter of fact, they'll probably help you find somebody who is a better fit for you, and that is just part of the process. I personally,
totally.
I've been to many different therapists, and some of them were way better than others. One of them in particular, I don't think I could have gotten away from fast enough. But but with that said, it was a learning experience because it's like I can't just quit on this altogether. I just have to find somebody else, and eventually I did, and it's helpful, right? But you can't just throw in the towel because it, it's that one session wasn't great for you. Like you got to put a little bit of effort,
Right, right. And there's
So
so many modalities out there, and we need different things all the time.
mhm.
It's like working out, right? You don't want to do the same thing for
Right,
50 years, right? Sometimes you want to work on different things. So,
sure, yeah.
yeah.
Otherwise, you'll have massive biceps and little pencil legs, you know.
Yeah. Those, yeah.
um, so um, this has been a great conversation, I think. Can you maybe offer like a little like kind of closing advice for folks who uh, might be in a similar situation to what you were in, and what are some ways that you think might be uh, that we might be able to better support military families and folks who are going through losses like this?
Ooh. I have a very good friend that husband passed away, at 39, just natural conditions.
Mhm.
And it's so heartbreaking, but typically less than a month after somebody loses somebody, we stop checking in on people,
Yeah.
whether that's suicide because it's difficult, whether that's combat because that breaks people's hearts. If you think about somebody, shoot them a text, call them up, just say you're thinking about them. I think those tiny things have to be doing something. And then I also know you have a lot of active duty listeners that And I think you and I, with the circumstance we've been through, I would just assume we both went through some sort of post traumatic stress, right?
Yeah.
People have to do their best to take care of that, because I
Mhm.
think PTSD, I try not to say the D in there, post traumatic stress, it hijacks our present, right? Because if we're
Mhm.
just thinking about all the terrible things, we're missing out on our present, you know, and I think we really have to work on that so that it doesn't take over our future too.
That's a great, piece of advice because you're right. It does hijack the present, and, keeps you from being present in the moment, like, being present with your family and your spouse or your kids or whatever, and it keeps you from enjoying the things that you should be able to enjoy. I've experienced that myself. I know other people have experienced that too, and sometimes it's not an easy thing to be present, to be in that moment, but
It's sometimes the hardest thing. You
it's
just would rather be numb or get through it. And then
yeah,
you feel so bad. You're like, did I just say I want to get through Christmas with my kids? Like,
right. Yeah, and that's I'm glad actually that you said that because that's something that exactly that thought is what goes through people's head is I just need to get through, Christmas or I just need to get through this thing which should be enjoyable, It should be a fun, it should be a happy, it should be, put whatever word to it that you want. It should be a good positive experience, but you just want to get through and just get it over with, like check the box. That's the feeling. But if you can find the good in those moments, it may be helpful to uh, feel like you're not just getting through, but you're experiencing and you're enjoying the thing that you're doing, right?
right, right.
So it's great advice, and I'm glad that you mentioned all of that. Um, Before we wrap up, where can people go to get in touch with you, find out about more about what you do with the final salute and things like that?
Sure. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, the Final Salute LLC. I also have a website that should be done by the time this comes out. That's the finalsalutellc.com. On there, you can find services we do, the death doula, the fundraising. If you're local to Oklahoma, we have a 5K every year at Veterans Day, and we love runners or volunteers. So that's where you can find me.
Excellent, excellent. So before we wrap up the show, I know a lot of times the topics that we talk about on the show are a little bit heavy, kind of tough topics to talk about, and this I think was uh, in some cases, this was definitely one of those kind of harder to listen to things. And I kind of like to end each episode with a little bit of humor just to make people laugh, put a smile on their face. And, sometimes people are having a rough time. It may be the only smile that they get on their face all day. And um, I always say, if the joke that I tell isn't funny, you can at least laugh at me for trying. I'm okay with that. Is laugh at me for how corny of a joke I decided to tell because I thought it was good, and whatever. I don't really care as long as you're laughing. I'm good with it. So if you can just indulge me for a second here, um, little question joke here for you. What do a hamster and a cigarette have in common?
Oh, I feel like this has something to do with the butt. No, don't know.
They're both completely harmless until you stick one in your mouth and light it on fire.
I bet some military member has put a hamster in your mouth and lit it on fire.
Well, if they haven't, after hearing what I just said, they probably will. But here's the disclaimer: don't do that. There you go. So now you can't blame me if you do it because I told you not to. So, but they're going to do what they're going to do anyways. So it's okay. But if they do it, and I'm not telling you to do it for any of the listeners out there, I'm not telling you to. But if you do, record it and send it to me, and I can use it in another episode, and that would be hilarious. But don't do it. But if you do, send it to me in a video. That would be great. So, anyways, thank you again, Jess, for taking the time to come on and share your story. Thank you for being vulnerable and open and sharing, everything about your brother and your family and the experiences that you've gone through. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Drive On podcast. If you want to support the show, please check out Scott's book, Surviving Son, on Amazon. All of the sales from that book go directly back into this podcast and work to help veterans in need. You can also follow the Drive On podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts.